Dear colleagues, we continue our working day on the topic of the next event, Euro integration processes in Donbass, an action plan. Our guests are Valeriy Kravchenko, Director at the NGO Center for International Security, Andriy Karakuts, Project Manager, Deputy Director at the NGO Center for International Security. Valeriy is given the floor.
Дякую.
Thank you. First, I would like to say that today we are going to speak about Donbass. Today is the 3rd anniversary of Euromaidan, and we are speaking about European integration. Euromaidan was the de facto the day of the new Independence Day of Ukraine. That's why the topic of today's briefing is really important. The integration was interpreted that something external. This was the external vector for our state, but integration is internal factor. And the integration of the territories is the long-term task for our state. But we should think not only about occupied territories, but also about the territories that are under control of the state. And we should understand how the world sees Ukraine and its integrational efforts. And Center for International Security carried out a survey, and we had a partner, the Institute of Research, and supported by Renaissance Foundation. We went to Severodonetsk, Kramatorsk, Mariupol, and we had 12 round tables. We met with the representatives of different levels of society, and we got ideas how people view European integration. I would like to start with the social and economic and political issues. We carried out a survey, 89 questionnaires.
Так. Власне, ми визначили шляхом анкетування проблеми. Було 89 анкет.
We had 89 questionnaires, and there were problems mentioned. So the highest 100, the first problem, the biggest problem in the region is military actions, and that they should be stopped. Next place, second place, is corruption and the decrease of production, communal tariffs, and other problems that are pressing in Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts. Speaking about the restoration of Donbass, and the majority, 31% of questionnaires, they include that the most important aspect is the restoration of infrastructure and the production facilities. Also that the war should be stopped. But as we, this is the biggest problem, the worst military actions is the biggest problem of the region. Concerning the EU, do you feel support This is 69.7%. So they were asked whether they feel support from the European Union, but 30% they say that they do not feel support of the European Union in Donbass. And the last issue, Euro integration processes, and there is an influence of Russian Federation. Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, and Severodonetsk, and Mariupol. 37 questionnaires established that it is important to preserve and revive economic ties with Russia, and 6% very important, 37% important, 28 not important, and 14 absolutely non-important. So it shows that we should establish new relationship, but Ukraine shouldn't trade with Russia at the moment. And according to impressions we got in course of our tour throughout Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, and my colleague Andriy is going to tell you about this.
Good afternoon. As my colleague has already said, we have developed some recommendations for different domains of life, not only European integration, but addressing the relevant problems for Donetsk region. We will start with the education. This is a sensitive sphere. The culture and education issues, they remain priorities in the times of military aggression. The first recommendation to improve mobility of school children, students and teachers inside of Ukraine and abroad, the support of youth platforms, engagement of young activists to authorities, targeted support to higher educational institutions, establishing a target fund. Those higher educational institutions from Donetsk and Lugansk region, they still face challenges. Fourth point is donor support to vocational school. Many IDPs can't find their specialty and jobs still. Reducing bureaucratism. In these regions, they should become a kind of examples for other regions. So there is no systemic work on site, and population lose hope, seeing how political elites continue corrupt policies. We had an example from reform of national police in the region. It is questionable. Population face corruption and lack of competence. We need a new political class, in particular from IDPs, representatives of the Party of Regions and financial and industrial groups. They are engaged and they still have power in the regions. We should break this structure. We should engage new politicians and form new political future of Donbass, the third recommendations to overcome conflicts between local and national authorities, so that often we can't fast implement programs, we can't use finances where large money flows. Those money of European donors. Here the cooperation should be well developed, so reducing bureaucratic barriers in provision of administrative services. Here we should improve qualifications of those administrative clerks who are working with population. Economics and investment. Investments are important into new productions, into economic self-sufficiency instead of one-time social projects. Many Donbass cities and towns, they are mono towns, so we should develop new productions. Here we should put in the money. We should create data banks. Donor sponsor support should support new initiatives. A bank of projects is actual because small towns, they lack initiatives as well as experts which can be formulated in the form of projects. Reformative economic change and entering new market places, in particular in the European Union, especially for small and medium enterprises, implementation of large-scale infrastructure projects. Here, transport infrastructure, energy problems, they are not solved. It is important to protect critical infrastructure. The fifth item, promoting population to remain living in the region. They should have some preferences so that they do not leave the region or do not move abroad. The next domain is civil society, in particular getting assistance from the European Union. The most important point is to develop competitive environment among local NGOs. Grant money mostly flow for organizing trainings, which is low efficiency. There is an interest in content-based projects on institutional capacity building of NGOs. The third sector most often only create the vision of the visual picture of activities, but not real activities. The problem of so-called eating grants in new corruption form is very actual. The second item, creating regional affiliates of international donors. Very often donors who provide large money, they do not understand and do not control how this money are dispersed. This is also a question of corruption. We should also analyze how it happens. The third point is mechanism of audits for control and strengthening impartiality of local authorities and NGOs. The fourth item is equal distribution of grants around the region. In the northern part of Donetsk region, we do not get grants as usual. The accent should be made on rural area. Hubs should be created which will address the issues of project writing. The last domain is information policy. we propose to create regional program of civil society informing on the issues of European integration for Donetsk and Lugansk region, which will cover such European values and supremacy of law. Because we often think about Europe as a visa-free regime or free trades, people in these regions, they do not understand what are the advantages of full-fledged cooperation with the EC. The second is creating and developing information platforms supporting independent mass media. We should conduct some counter activities to Russian propaganda. The third issue is children's public awareness campaign. From the very beginning, from school, we should create environment for children to get to know the advantages of Euro integration. This could be done via football matches, via patriotic education, informal forms of education. These are the opportunities to demonstrate to the population what advantages in informal sector are available. Here are our recommendations. The publication will be issued thanks to the Institute of Strategic Research. Do you have any questions? You are welcome. Thank you, Andriy. Are there any questions among the audience? You are welcome.
Andriy Megil, Institute of Liberalism. You've mentioned recommendations to invest in small settlements. They do not have capabilities and qualification. Did you consider transfer of people there from big cities to create and stimulate the employment? Yes, we have such a recommendation. The idea is that we should involve IDPs there. They go to big cities, they face unemployment, they need housing, and such small settlements, they have infrastructure, and donors can consider this and invest money in the regions. This process is ongoing. There is such a need because dangerous processes are going on, because people leave, and they leave to Russian Federation from Lugansk and Donetsk oblasts. They do not develop local initiatives, they just immigrate. I would like to give one example. We had participants from the northern regions of Lugansk Oblast. I don't remember the name of the settlement, that there were really many IDPs. When there was disaster, and when disaster happened, then they came there. The house costs about 10,000 hryvnias. There are houses, but there is no employment. They have nothing to do there, and they left. They spent there a year maybe, and first they came here and then they left because there is no employment. And we should do everything possible in order that these people stay in Ukraine and develop the state. Ukraine Crisis Media Center, Maria Yemets, you said about investment in production. So this region, it needs support, and what production should be developed there to have good prospects, to be a driver for further development. In our recommendation, we focus on the fact that the big enterprises are not priority. We believe that small and medium-sized enterprises should be developed. Services should be developed, and those enterprises that will be created to replace obsolete, especially mines, they should be directed at the EU market. Automated production that will produce products with high added value, because many experts say that the region should produce processed goods, but not just to export raw materials. And businessmen, they are interested to create a full cycle. Sergei Stuganov, Hromadske Radio. You started your report with information about support of international organizations and their support to local population in the East. There is such opinion that the EU organizations, they are interested in helping, but this money is spent for monitoring and discussions and roundtable, and not enough means are provided for realization on infrastructure projects. Is it true? Theoretically, of course, monitoring and research should be carried out before project starts its practical implementation. Is this the first stage? And in 3 years we can expect a wave of real projects, or it's just talking? Thank you. Unfortunately, yes, there is a pressing issue. There are a lot of meetings that just for discussing and don't provide recommendations. Last year showed that money and state funds, they are not spent efficiently. And European donors, they have concern that this money won't be allocated appropriately and timely. And the main problem is that this money can be just stolen. And we face an interesting trend when local power get help from international donors. They start to tell that it happened due to their support, and in the situation for the Europeans, this is not acceptable. And for this region, as I said from the very start, we should do it exemplary. We should simplify procedures. Bureaucratic procedures should be simplified, and we should control, audit, and to direct our attention on how to make proper changes. And we believe that due to Institute of Strategic Research, this information will be provided to the heads of the ministries, the Ministry of Occupied Territories, the administration of the President. We believe that these issues should be heard by them. Thank you, dear colleagues. Do you have questions? No questions. Thank you.